Holding the gun feels natural and it reminds you she...
Hello. Let me know if I can... Sure. Let me have another time, perhaps. Sure. Let me... Anything else you're thinking of selling? Another time, perhaps. Hello. For the moment, yeah, you won't.
The lieutenant watches you take the transceiver.
Of course, you need a certain level of discernment to really appreciate the difference in quality.
He's reaching for naked snobbery because he knows you've got him beat from a technical angle.
We're glad to hear it.
Yes, what is it? What? No, no one's suspicious around here.
She has not seen her, sire. 'Tis true.
Yes, what is it? Ah, very good. Let's see what you have. Is this a Kristallsprach? The Model 9 is an excellent piece of equipment. I don't know what you had to pay for it, but it should work very nicely.
It's not often that she allows herself to be awed, but the way she holds the crystal sprach reminds you of someone receiving a precious gift.
I believe that means we're ready to get started. I should warn you, once we begin setting up this antenna, we'll need to see the whole process through. There won't be any second chances, any do-overs. You understand? So if there's anything you'd like to get in order before we depart, I suggest you do it now. Ah, yes. I wasn't sure what to do about that, but then I discovered an abandoned power source down by the edge of the bay.
It's obvious. She's referring to your half-sunken Caprice 40.
Oh, Yes, I did notice that it was covered in police livery. Then you already know that the carriage itself is irreparable, but the rear-mounted engine seems to be in fine working order. My intention is to run a power cable from the engine up to the antenna. It won't last forever, but it should give us enough time to establish a connection with Coalition warship Archer. Ah, yes. I wasn't sure what to do about that, but then I discovered an abandoned power source down by the edge of the bay.
It's obvious. She's referring to your half-sunken.
In that case, let's move on. That's up to you. At a minimum, I would make sure you are physically and mentally prepared for an intense and difficult process. Once we begin, there can be no interruptions.
At the very least, you should make sure you're wearing a good pair of gloves.
Radio engineers typically carry overpriced solvent sprays to clean the antenna connections. But in a pinch...
Psst. It's the alcohol in the ammonia that's doing the real work. Kinda like with you.
Finally, there's the question of stimulants. Some people prefer to keep illegal amphetamines on hand to help with their work. I'm not one of them, but they do exist. I don't take them because they make me nauseous. But everyone has their reasons. I don't judge. That's fine. Return to me when you're ready to go. Yes, what is it? Yes, what is it? Very good. If you'll help me with some of this equipment then.
Back across the water lap. At least we are getting our exercise in today.
If you'll please carry that amplifier, officer. And if you'll take that spool of cable, we should be able to move it all in one trip. And now if you'll just connect that here...
It's done. I believe we are ready.
We're ready to try at least. Please put on these headphones. There should be 2 extra sets. I've configured the channels so that only your microphone is set to broadcast, officer. We'll all be able to listen, but anyone we reach will only hear your voice. You will need to transmit your connection request while I attempt to locate the warship's public frequency. You will likely encounter some interference, but it's important to keep transmitting your request until you're acknowledged. Ready? Then it will be exactly like every other moment of every other day. I ask again, are you ready? Good. Beginning transmission.
A soft rustling between your ears, a winterscape with fast falling snow. Every light switch, every motor carriage, every doorbell, tea kettle, and radio in Martinez, all mingled with electrical interference caused by scattered thunderstorms over Ozone.
Officer, are you in order? We're waiting for you to start. We don't have time for indecision. Just say whatever first comes to mind. We don't have time for indecision. Just say whatever first comes to mind.
Is there anybody there? The lieutenant looks up at you with a nervous glance. Nervous for who, though, you cannot say.
Try again, officer.
Nein, Liebling. Unseren Jungen nach Redeposten. Einem dieser Dinger. Marianne hat mir erzählt, dass Oskar nicht mehr derselbe ist, seit er auf einem Luftschiff aus Graz zurückgekommen ist. Natürlich halten die Psychologen für vollkommen normal, aber sie hat das Gefühl, seit seiner Rückkehr mit einem Fremden zusammenzuleben.
You can't make out a word of this gibberish. The rustling of dry autumn leaves, waves breaking at a distance, 1,000 wings beating at once.
Liebling, bitte. Er ist unser einziges Kind. Er kann auch nächstes Jahr zur Akademie gehen.
It isn't gibberish, it's Valder. Now please keep trying. Again?
It's gone now.
A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine.
I didn't say anything, Detective.
Someone has been maintaining it. The wiring has been repaired.
An uncomfortable silence falls over the connection.
It's been a long winter. Long and cold.
I promise you I didn't, even though it certainly sounds like me.
I can't say with certainty, but it sounds very much like anthroponetic crosstalk. It happens sometimes when sending transmissions across long stretches of pale.
Ah, yes, of course. That must be it.
Outwardly, they both exude calm, but there's something disturbing about this thought to both of them.
Natürlich halten ihn die Psychologen für vollkommen normal.
Ah, very good thinking. I'll engage it now.
Someone has been maintaining it.
That's much better. Please try again.
Where's your partner? Are you there, Lieutenant Dubois? Please acknowledge.
Damn! Even with the crosstalk suppressed, the signal is still very weak. I did not expect simply locating the signal to be so difficult. We must consider several variables. Local anthroponetic conditions, the sophistication of our transceiver, the quality of our connections, and the physics of our antenna itself. Fortunately, we have a more than adequate transceiver, so I do not believe it is causing any problems. And we're also unlikely to change our local entroponetic conditions, so the next step is to thoroughly inspect our connections. I did not expect simply locating the signal to be so difficult. We must consider several variables: local entroponetic conditions, the sophistication of our transceiver, the quality of our connections, and the physics of our antenna itself. Fortunately, we have a more than adequate transceiver, so I do not believe it is causing any problems. And we're also unlikely to change our local entroponetic conditions, so the next step is to thoroughly inspect our connections. You need to climb up there and look at them for yourself.
But you don't have the technical expertise.
Someone has been maintaining it.
No problem at all. You've already teleported up way greater heights. Something about this setup seems dimly familiar, but you'll be damned if you know what you're supposed to do about it.
That's true, but I can't leave my station, so it will have to be you.
You actually haven't, but you have proven that you are a relatively capable climber.
Then you might break your neck.
Your gloves give you a solid grip on the metal bar. This feels pleasingly familiar. You don't exactly cut a lithesome figure, but after several moments of scrambling, you manage to hoist yourself atop the monument. That performance was frankly an embarrassment.
You're doing all right, Detective. Just keep your focus on the task at hand.
The connection itself is nothing more than a little braid of exposed wire wrapped about the hoof of the horse. A copper fetter it cannot slip. The whole monument is covered in a thin but durable layer of oil and grime. It's obvious no one has cleaned it in years. The programmer mentioned ammonia, but anything alcoholic should dissolve the oils, creating a cleaner and clearer connection.
Well, do you see anything? Damn, I was afraid of that. And I didn't bring any solvents with me. How foolish. Short of changing the shape of the antenna, I'm not sure what else we can do from here. And the lorries are all jammed together, so that's unlikely to happen. Ideally, narrow the receiving mode so that we can isolate the warship signal and eliminate the crosstalk. And if you don't know what you're doing, of course you could just make it worse. What do you mean? You adjust the antenna manually. With your hand. I'm afraid we're out of alternatives. You're just going to have to go for it.
She's right. The responsibility is yours, and yours alone. There's no turning back now. You are face to face with Philip III. The Bronze King looks toward the west. Something about his features seems bizarrely distorted. Not intentionally. It's a matter of perspective. The king was never meant to be seen from such an angle as you've attained. This faithful steed is in nearly as poor a condition as its rider. A clear sky, the kind of day where anything might happen. Across the river, you can see Coalition warship Archer tracing its gradual circuit above Revachol East. A few of the idle lorry drivers and strikebreakers gesture at you with their cigarettes, more out of curiosity than anything else. From the window of one of the adjacent apartment buildings, an older woman leans out, her heavy breasts sagging. She yells a single word you can't make out, and then shuts the window with a violent thunk. You allow the
Yes, what is it? Very good.
Back across.
If you'll please carry that amplifier, officer. And if you'll take that spool of cable, we should be able to move it all in one trip. And we're ready to try at least. Please put on these headphones. You will need to transmit your connection request while I attempt to Too late!
a soft rustling between your ears.
Up. It. I did not expect we must fortune and I did we must fort and we're also unlikely to change.
Your gloves, you don't exactly cut a lithesome figure, but after several moments of scrambling, you manage to hoist yourself atop the monument. That performance, the pro.
Well done. Short of changing the ship, ideally.
She's right. The responsibility is yours, and yours alone. There's no turning back now. Don't allow the broken heart.
This is... You are currently speaking with Collision Worship Archer, flagship of Insurcon forces in Rebashon.
Yes, what is it? Very good.
Back.
If you'll please carry that amplifier, officer. And if you'll take that spool of cable, we should be able to move it all in one trip. And now we're ready to try at least. Please put on these headphones. There should be 2 extra sets. I've configured the channels so that you will need to transmit your connection request. What good?
A sop every
Officer? Are you in
is the lieutenant nervous.
Try again.
You cut the rustling of dry or
Keep again.
a slight frisson.
I did.
And
I can.
I can't.
He.
out.
That's... Damn, I did. We must fort and we're all unit.
But
Someone had.
no prop. Something about this. Your gloves, you don't exactly cut a lithesome figure, but after several moments of scrambling, you manage to hoist yourself atop the monument. That before
You're doing all right, Detective.
Well, do you see anything? I suspect short of changing the shape ideally. What do you mean?
She's right. You are not intentionally. It's a matter of perspective. The king was never meant to be seen from such an angle as you've attained. Your grip is firm, yet controlled. The swelling in your headset guides your hands as much as your hands guide the bronze horse head. It's almost like you're hearing through the horse itself.
That's very good. Just a bit more to the left. Nein, Liebling.
The signal is clear. The storm has passed. This is another voice.
Try it now, officer.
Lieutenant Dubois, this is Collision Worship Archer. We are acknowledging and accepting.
Ah! Excellent! You are connected. Now be quick. I don't know how long I'll be able to preserve the signal.
There is so much you wish you could ask. Your efforts have bought you some time, but you can't forget what you're really here for.
Please be advised that you are speaking on a public frequency. What is your request? You are currently speaking with Collision Worship Archer, flagship of Insurcom forces in Revachol. No, the captain of the Archer is deeply classified intelligence. We are the second signaler. Our name is not important. All you need to know is that we hold the position of second signaler aboard the Archer.
You really don't have the faintest guess what her name could be. You were never very good at this sort of thing. There's something in the way she refers to herself, always with the first person plural. A deliberate blurring of the boundary between herself and the institution she represents.
Because it's standard practice for signalers to use the pluralis officialis during the course of our duties. It's meant to serve as a reminder that we don't speak only for ourselves. For instance, as second signaler, we represent Collision Worship Archer, which in turn represents Insurcom and the Coalition more generally, which in turn represents the Moralist International, which itself represents the interests of 1.2 billion people across the world. It may be a demanding job, but the Coalition is committed to ensuring those in its service maintain a healthy work-life balance. Now, your request? That's difficult to say. We have a very particular view from our observation platform up here. Perhaps the best way to describe it is to say we have a very wide perspective, but not an especially detailed one. Oh, it looks quite lovely from here, even with the rain. From our portal, we see rolling hillsides, a public park filled with grand oak trees, men and women going about on horses. There are children running home to get out of the rain. The homes and gardens are quite beautiful, very near like those in certain areas of Messina.
Le Jardin, Stella Marie, Saint-Baptiste. She's looking down on the suburbs of Revachol East.
That must be. We've only recently been detailed to the Archer, so we are still learning the names of all the many districts. Martinez. That is to the west, yes? Stand by a moment. We are adjusting our viewfinder. Yes, we are looking at the river now. There are small islands in the middle of it. It's very nice, actually. Interesting. The west of the city looks very different from the east. There's a large motorway dividing it nearly in half. This must be the 881, no? Very well. Now, we're looking at an area that seems to be in urgent need of revitalization. Now we see the lake, and around that, a rather vibrant-looking city quarter. There are some large buildings from the turn of the century, we would guess. Yes, this must be the heart of the district. So that is Martinez.
A distended pause. A slight chill of embarrassment.
It is quite striking, compared to where we're from. There are a great many destroyed buildings, still. And we don't see any horses. It's really nothing like the eastern side of the city. But what's most striking are the people. They just... we don't even know how to say it. We really couldn't say. That's one of the limits of disadvantage. But the whole district does have a very desperate character. And then there's all the tear lying about. It's very unpleasant to look at. We're going to widen our viewfinder a bit. Yes, recycling is very important. The Coalition always supports initiatives that promote civic responsibility and mindfulness. A roundabout. Aha! Yes, we see the monument. But there seems to be a man on top of it. That's you. We have to say, That's extremely irregular, Lieutenant. What are you doing on top of the public monument? How interesting. In Messina, disco has been extinct for more than a decade. Funny how the past always is more present in some parts of the world. In any event, it is certainly interesting to see you, even from afar. Most of the time, we signalers just have to imagine what our interlocutors look like.
Liebling, bitte. Ist unser einziges Kind.
Time is running short, officer. I estimate you have time for maybe 2 more questions.
Come again? We're picking up more interference. A very important question with a very simple answer. We want humanity to endure. Beyond that, it may be said that we are the inheritors and stewards of Dolores Day's legacy.
Dolores Day. So beautiful.
Oh, incomparably so. But that isn't what made her so remarkable.
Not true. Her beauty was like a glowing coil on a hot stove, and yet you felt blessed to touch it.
She was the greatest innocent, the single most consequential being to have ever lived. Her legacy touches every aspect of modern life. Immeasurable. It includes interstellar travel, 3 scientific revolutions, humanism, internationalism, the welfare state, and balance of terror theory. Nothing less than the intellectual foundation of our modern order. The role of the Moralist International is twofold: to buy humanity sufficient time to perfect itself, and to patiently guide it along the road while protecting it from ideological highwaymen and eschatologists. It's an elegant idea, one of the cornerstones of the modern era. In short, it holds that durable, lasting peace is possible when the major powers are capable of inflicting unacceptable and irreversible destruction upon one another. Because no rational state is willing to accept the risk of such a calamity befalling its own people. All powers are incentivized to de-escalate conflicts before they reach the point of no return. For the most part, it has. The world is certainly not free of violent conflict, but in the modern era, we have made great strides to reduce its frequency, duration, and severity. It was established by many of the same founding party members who elected Dolores Day, and who, after her assassination, dedicated their lives to the continuation of her political and intellectual projects. There are many. The communists say they are the next dialectical step in an inexorable spiral of progress. They claim to have resolved the inherent contradictions of moralism, and believe they're just one revolution away from establishing a humanist paradise. The fascists say they are both the ancestors of and the successors to Doloreanism. In other words, they believe that Dolores Day's reign simply represents a glorious phase of expansion within a greater Franco-Nigerian heritage. They criticize the DeLorean project for accepting and integrating new peoples rather than forcefully subjugating them. And then, there are our prodigal cousins, the Vazan Social Democrats, who hold our same values and have even adopted many of our same rights and iconography, though they persist in rejecting the umbrella of moralism.
For some reason, it's the Social Democrats she sounds most exasperated with.
Many political theorists have argued that communism accepts the logic of Dolorian humanism while abandoning its spirit. They offer a cautionary tale, in other words, about attempting to found a paradise atop bones and ashes.
Whose bones and whose ashes exactly? You don't think the coalition pacified Revachol with bonbons, do you?
But it's a delicate and very complicated subject. And of course, every belief system has something to recommend it. The RCM exists under the umbrella of the coalition, just as the coalition exists under the umbrella of the moral interna. At the same time, the RCM is not exactly of the coalition. It's our understanding that the RCM's organizational structure predates the coalition. We believe it may even be modeled after the communal brigades themselves.
There is some truth to that.
But in a practical sense, it's the responsibility of the ethics divisions to ensure that both organizations are working towards the same end. One now committed to upholding moralist values. Strange, isn't it? History is a river coursing ever downward. Occasionally, its course is redirected in mysterious and unexpected ways. Let us answer your question with a question. Have you ever seen evening fall over the old town of Vesperashit? If you have, then you would remember. It is one of the great wonders of the world, impossible to mistake or forget. The heart of the city, the old town, is a district composed of weather marble, comprising thousands of columns and arcades arranged around a series of grand plazas. During the day, it's a beautiful sight, equal to any of the great cities of Pericarnassus. But as the sun sets, the shadows cast by those columns and arcades weave together to form an intricate ombre lattice. When you see it, you suddenly understand. It was all built for you, for this very moment.
The name at Vesperaskit means evening comes.
For you, for all of humanity. Not only that, but you are also part of that centuries-long plan. When you cross one of the open plazas, your own shadows is yes, it is. We grew up there. We have seen the lattice with our own eyes. She was. There are even those who say that at Vesperashit summoned Dolores Day, or that it was built in preparation for her, centuries before her arrival. That's why the old town is sometimes called the ceremonial heart of humanity. Of course, such a city does not spring from nowhere, nor does it endure without effort. Its construction was the work of many generations, and its preservation is an equally monumental responsibility. About 3,000 years.
She really had that on the tip of her tongue. It's like she has the timeline laid out right in front of her.
It does, doesn't it? And yet, there remains a great deal to be done in that span.
Officer, I've held the signal open as long as I can. Whatever you came here to ask it now.
Is everything all right? Acknowledged. To reach the committee, all you need to do is fill out the appropriate request form and submit it to the liaison for public affairs. If the liaison accepts your request, you will be invited to address the committee at their next quarterly public hearing. We believe the next hearing is scheduled for July.
chain, right? You can't wait that long.
Not a problem. If this is a time-sensitive matter, you may file an emergency address request with the liaison for public affairs. They typically respond within a few weeks. We're afraid that is quite impossible, Lieutenant Dubois. We cannot transfer you to the committee because we are not entrusted with that responsibility. We are simply the second signal. We're here, Lieutenant. Though we have to say, this is all quite out of sequence.
This line of argument is quite pointless. You should abandon it.
What part of need to reach the committee doesn't she understand? Time to lay it all out.
We will hear your request, Lieutenant Dubois.
That's only because they haven't heard about your problems yet.
Please confirm. Are you saying your partner is somehow impeding your investigation?
Are you completely out of your mind, Detective? Archer, please give us a moment.
They can't hear us, I'm afraid. Only his microphone is connected to the transceiver.
I don't understand. I thought he was making progress.
Lieutenant, surely you're aware that it is a civil offense to maliciously or frivolously obstruct the collision radio frequency. Now, please excuse us while we update the receiving frequency. This connection will be cleared in 4, 3...
Quick, hang up on her first.
2, 1...
And the line goes quiet. The lieutenant gives a long sigh as he removes his headphones. He looks up at you.
I think it's best for you to climb off the statue now, Detective. Your real work is done here.
There's a damp cold running up the insides of your thighs. Your legs have grown stiff. You've been up here quite a while. You look around. The strikebreakers are still shouting their slogans and waving their hand-painted signs. Beneath you, the lieutenant and the programmer have begun disconnecting a few cables. There's really no point. You're beginning to feel like the little child who refuses to come down off the carousel.
Good. Now give me a hand with these amplifiers. Leave the cables. I don't feel like making 2 trips.
What's one more trip across the waterlock?
Well, this was an interesting collaboration. Really? I do not think we were all that successful. But maybe the RCM has a different definition of success. In any event, just leave that equipment here. I'll put it away later. If you'd like, you can take one of the extra headsets. I don't need so many spares. Now you'll excuse me. I have to get back to my own work.
The Insulindian miracle. old door worn by elements